These coverings collectively serve several important functions. First is protection. They shield the kidneys from mechanical injury and infection. Second is support. The adipose tissue provides cushioning and helps maintain kidney position. Lastly is the structural integrity. The fibrous capsule and renal fascia contribute to maintaining the shape and structure of the kidney. This is the correct way to attach the scalpel blade to the scalpel holder. First is prepare the blade and open the scalpel blade packaging carefully, exposing only the tail of the blade to minimize the risk of cutting yourself. You can use a forceps to hold the blade, or you can use your hand and hold the blade safely. Align the blade with the handle and gently slide the blade into the groove of the handle to ensure that it fits perfectly. As we cut the kidney in a coronal position, we can clearly see the fibrous capsule is also being cut. The fibrous capsule surrounds each kidney and provides structural support and protection against physical damage and infection. As we can see that we cannot see the perirenal fat in the dissection because it was removed earlier. But here is an image so that we can still discuss this part. This layer of fat surrounds the renal capsule and acts like a cushion, providing additional support and protection against trauma. Lastly is the renal fascia. This layer helps maintain the position of the kidneys within the retroperitoneal space and encloses both kidneys. The shiny part is the renal fascia. As we remove the fibrous capsule or the renal capsule, we can clearly see the renal fascia.
So here we have the kidney. It has like a C-shaped structure or D. Here this part, this clear part, it is the renal capsule. Aside from the fatty things, it is the renal capsule, a tough fibrous outer layer that encloses and protects the kidney. And in the side, on the medial side, in the indention part, we have the renal ileum. This is the indention on the medial side of the artery where the vessels are. You can also find here the ureter, the tube that transports urine from the kidneys, renal pelvis to the bladder for storage and eventually excretion. The renal artery is more thicker than the renal vein. The renal artery is the blood vessel that carries oxygenated blood from the heart to the kidneys for filtration. And the renal vein, it is the blood vessel that carries filtered deoxygenated blood away from the kidney back to the heart.
The LSID, and now we will next look the internal anatomy of kidney. A frontal section through the kidney reveals an outer layer of the kidney called renal cortex, characterized by granular appearance due to presence of numerous nephrons, the functional unit of the kidney. The cortex contains the glomeruli responsible for filtering blood, and the proximal and distal convoluted tubules, which further process the filtered fluid. Renal medulla, the inner region of the kidney, consisting of cone-shaped structure called renal pyramids. The medulla consists the loop of Henle, which concentrate urine, and the collecting duct, which transport urine to the renal pelvis. let's discuss the within of medulla. First is renal pyramids structure, cone-shaped structures located in the renal medulla, inner region of the kidney. Function: they contain the loop of Henle and collecting ducts of nephrons. These structures play a crucial role in concentrating urine by reabsorbing water and electrolytes. Renal papilla functions: it projects into a minor calyx. Urine produced in the renal pyramids drain through the renal papilla into the minor calyx. Minor calyx structures are small cup-shaped structures that surround the renal papilla. Functions: collects the urine from the renal papilla and directs it to a major calyx. Major calyx functions: of collect urine from the minor calyces and deliver it to the renal pelvis. Renal pelvis functions: of collects urine from the major calyces and directs it to the ureter, which transforms urine to the bladder. And last, the hilum structure, a concave neck on the medial side of kidney. Function: the hilum is the entry and exit point of blood vessels, nerves, and the ureter. It's like the gateway to the kidney.
Before we proceed to the blood flow, we should be able to identify the different parts of which the blood will go. First is the renal artery. Now this is the part where blood enters first. And now the blood will go through the segmental arteries. From there, it will go through the interlobal arteries. And next, it will go to the arcuate arteries. Now why it is called arcuate? Arcuate means arc, and by that, it forms an arc shape. And lastly, it will go through the cortical radiate arteries. The next flow is what we call the venous flow, in which the blood will go out the kidney. Now the structures are: the first one is of course the cortical radiate veins. The next one is it will go under the arcuate veins, and next the interlobar veins, and lastly it will go directly to the renal veins. You may be wondering why it is called arteries and veins. First, the veins, it means it is an deoxygenated blood, while the arteries means it is oxygen-rich blood. Blood flow through the kidneys begin when oxygenated blood enters via the renal arteries, which branch from the abdominal aorta. Now these arteries divide into segmental arteries, then interlobal arteries that run between the renal pyramids, and further branch into the arcuate arteries at the cortex medulla boundary. From there, the blood will enter cortical radiate arteries, which is extended into the renal cortex and branch into afferent arterioles, which supplies individual nephrons. Now, blood flows into the glomerulus, where high pressure forces water, ions, and small molecules into the Bowman's capsule, wherein it forms filtrate. The remaining blood exits through afferent arterioles and enters peritubular capillaries surrounding the renal tubules. It is where the absorption of essential substances occurs and waste products are secreted. This blood is then collected by cortical radiate veins, which drain into arcuate veins and interlobal veins before converging into the renal vein. Finally, the renal vein carries the oxygenated blood back to the inferior vena cava, which completes its cycle. Now the deoxygenated blood will now return to the heart. Lastly, This intricate process ensures efficient filtration and regulation of fluid and electrolyte balance in the body.
And now let's jump into the urine formation. So we have three major renal processes. Number one is the glomerular filtration. Number two is the tubular reabsorption. And the number three is the tubular secretion. First is the glomerular filtration. After the cortical radiate artery, the blood comes into the afferent arteriole and it enters into the Bowman's capsule here. And here in the knot here is what we call the glomerulus. And this process begins in the glomerulus, a network of capillaries located within the nephron, the functional unit of the kidney. The blood enters to the glomerulus and high pressure forces water, electrolytes, and small molecules such as glucose, amino acid, and waste products like urea out of the blood. These substances form a filtrate which enters the Bowman's capsule, while larger molecules like proteins and blood cells remain in the bloodstream. This is the initial step in urine production as it separates waste and essential nutrients. Next is the tubular reabsorption. As the filtrate moves into the nephron, especially in the proximal convoluted tubule, most of the water, glucose, and amino acids and essential ions like sodium, chloride, potassium are reabsorbed back into the bloodstream via surrounding capillaries. This reabsorption continues through the loop of Henle and distal convoluted tubules. The body reclaims valuable substances to maintain proper fluid balance, blood pressure, and electrolyte levels, significantly reducing the volume of filtrate that will eventually become urine. Lastly, our tubular secretion. In the distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct, this one is our collecting duct, the kidney fine-tunes the composition of urine by actively secreting additional waste products, for example, hydrogen ions, potassium, ammonium, and creatinine from the bloodstream into the tubular fluid. This process helps regulate blood pH, potassium levels, and elimination of certain drugs and toxins. The final urine, now concentrated with waste products, move in the collecting ducts, flows down to the ureters, and it is stored in the bladder or urinary bladder until excretion.